So today we're doing Raid Lead 101, and one of the most brought up topics in recent few weeks was like, I don't know how to read logs, or I'm uncomfortable, or I don't know something about the logs and I would like to get better, and I'm not comfortable to raid lead because I cannot like give good advice to people based on the logs. And so that's why we decided to put up together a session to show you like basics of the logs and how to like read them, use them, and what kind of interesting insights you can find in the logs. To start logging, you need to get a log upload tool that can be downloaded from this website, esologs.com. And then within the game, either you type it by hand. Once you enter the trial, you type /encounter log and it activates it. And then next time you type /encounter log, it deactivates it. Or you could get an add-on such as Lumberjack or Easy Stalker that would just activate it for you whenever you enter the trial. So the danger of add-on like that is that every time you go to the trial, it will start logging. It would put it in a file in your directory where your ESO add-ons and stuff like that. It will be most likely in Documents, Central Scrolls Online Live, logs, and there will be like a file called encounter log. And the more you log, the more like stuff gets put into that file. So eventually it grows over time. So if you're not diligent about deleting that file on time, you could accumulate like 7 gigabytes of logs easy, which
or 22.
Yeah, or 22, which I do very often. And because I do that often, I even like make a tool for myself to split it into individual trial logs so that I can upload them, because like computer cannot handle anything over 1 gigabyte usually. If you're interested in the tool, I'll send you the link. It's like it has UI and everything. So basically it goes into that log, and then you can either live log it. Well, so you entered it, you open the tool and you say live log, or you just can upload it post factum. You finish trading and you just upload everything that it's in that file and then review it afterwards. Okay, so we upload it and we have this log. This is like a mega log of couple days put together. Pretty sure that's why it's so big. So we can pick over here what fights we want to review. Even trash fights will be present over here, so you can even review trash fights. And you can review one by one, or like multiple fights put together in one view, or review them one by one. And each of them you can use for different purposes. So if something went wrong during one fight, you can just like look over here. If you're trying to steal setups and stuff like that, definitely this preview is good. If you want to look at the overall performance of a person within one raid day, you could like pick together, let's see, all the O-axis pulls or all the pulls of the night all together. So, and then you can click this back and get back into the view of the individual fight. So on the landing page of the individual fight, you have this high-level overview that shows you this is your raid composition. It internally somehow classifies people into tanks, DDs, and healers, and sometimes it fails to do that, especially in VAS. It like ignores tank healer job and thinks that they're a very low damage rather than a healer. So there's some sort of internal logic going on. And then it shows you at the high level, this is AoE damage that they did. This is who did how much heals, who died, how much damage was taken by different mechanics. And then here is like high level setups. Okay, this person were in Kratis and were those type skills. So you can see high level setups of people over here. So now once you start to look at the performance or troubleshooting, you can look at multiple things. First tab over here will be damage done. This is AoE damage done to multiple enemies. And in here you can see which enemies were present in the fight and to which enemies people were doing damage. So a common question would be like, well, okay, what if a Harvard Annihilator doesn't die on time? And usually it's problem with the first one. You can just pick, okay, this is all the spawns of that hierarchical annihilators. Let me pick the first one and see who doesn't do damage to it. Okay, player 6, what the hell were you doing? Probably they were dead because that's very sus looking number. So player 6, like, do damage to first hierarchical. You can draw a quick conclusion. Of course, you need to confirm were they alive, or maybe they were not even in an instance when we started to pull, so that's why they got pulled in the fight late or something like that. So more investigation obviously needs to be done. Then oftentimes Oxilzo fight is like a AoE fight, so everybody just cleaves everything. But some fights such as Ohm's VAS miniskips would be a single target fight. So in here you would be interested to damage done to just bosses. So over here, 2 clicks over here, this is all the ads, and this is all the bosses themselves. So you would click here and see, okay, this is so-called single target damage, how much single target they do to the boss itself. And here it shows those people are definitely mega cracked. So this is damage. Then you can see on each individual player, you can click and see, okay, which skills were doing better damage for them. We obviously can see, okay, it's 43 casts of each, and this is like high amount of damage done by these 2 skills, because those are both very strong AoE semi-spammables. So you can see, okay, those skills are contributing the most to their damage, and you can go down and see, okay, what other skills were doing. 11 casts of caltrops did 6.4k damage, as compared to, we're still looking at the way, as compared to, let's say, 18 casts of orbs, 11. But like, this is less cast, this much damage. So you can see, like, you can then extrapolate, is it worth to run the skill per cast? So you would divide this by 11, divide this by 18, and see, okay, is it worth it? Compare one skill against another. Is it worth to cast the skill in a fight when it does this much damage? And it shows you basically average hits, average hit number, and crit percent as well. So oftentimes DDs are very interested, well, what is my crit luck? They so call it. Usually they would hover at about like 70% crit, maybe more, and then they would see, well, okay, my strong hitting skill got 70% crit, that's good. If it got like 60% crit, they got so-called scammed out of crit, so they will be upset about their pairs. Okay, so on the next tab, we can see, another thing that is interesting, you can see which part of the skill, some skills come with like initial hit, and then like some sort of dot component and stuff like that. So you can expand here and see which part of the skill does how much damage as well. So let's say one of them is the direct component of wall, and one of them is dot component of wall, and you can see, okay, this is the difference, different types of damage that this individual skill does. And you could confirm over here that, is it worth to use it as a spammable, even though it has dot component to it? Well, maybe it is, because it like the direct component of it will do this much damage per 18 cast type situation. Does anybody have any questions about this preview? Okay, no questions. Are you all bored and falling asleep?
No.
Okay, that's good.
Well, there's actually
Yeah, I'm here for the ASMR.
No, I think it's like a good refresher, because there's some little details. There's like, I didn't know you could tab between the minis and the bosses and see their damage, or I thought you had to navigate it differently. So it's nice.
I did too, so that was actually very helpful.
Yeah, little things like that.
So over here, it will list all the abilities that they were casting. One of the interesting things that you could look, whether they take in synergies and how much synergies are doing damage. For example, 7 grave robbers, 3k damage. That's actually kind of a lot of damage from just picking up the synergy. So grave robber is pretty cracked synergy in the game, definitely worth running. So you can see, oh, okay, they were taking synergies, they got couple shackles, they got couple pure agonies, and you could also see whether they're stealing Alkosh synergies from tanks, especially in this area, because we will look at it later. Okay, so in here you could also pick each individual skill that they were casting, or each individual target that they were focusing. So we saw before, you can pick orcs or all the bosses together and see. And the interesting part over here is that you can also zoom in into certain area of the fight. For example, here, high burst. What happened here? I wonder, why did they do this much damage? Oh, okay, they casted standard. So the standard came up, and that's why their damage went up. And on the graph over here, you can actually pick skills one by one and see how did they perform throughout. So let's pick just deep breath and see, okay, throughout the fight, how did it perform? So this probably they're just casting initial, this is a follow-up of deep breath, maybe hitting, like that. So you can see each individual skill, how it performs over time. And then if you want to go back on a full view, you just click reset zoom. On a phone, this will be like a finger zoom in, zoom out action. So you could use like on the phone, you could see it too. Though if you're on the phone, you need to put it into horizontal view to see the graph in the first place, and then you can zoom in, zoom out with like 2-finger, whatchamacallit, sign. Right, so next up is damage taken. This is who was taking damage and how much of that damage, and usually tanks will be at the top because they're obviously tanking, but then you can, down here you could see and troubleshoot things like person is taking too much damage, maybe they're missing certain defensive CPs or certain defensive skills on them, so they're taking more damage than usual as compared to other people. In orcs especially, it's very common that some person just gets hated on by fetid speed coming from frogs. So you can click here and see, okay, this person got literally 44 fetid speeds, and everybody else, we can even sort it, and everybody else got significantly less. So they're getting hated on by frogs, and they're taking so much more damage from frogs during the fight. So obviously this person also would have issues with their harpooners, uptimes and stuff like that. And later on, when we look at the replay, we could confirm, is it their problem, they're out of position, or is it just like, in that pool they just got, hated on by frogs and unlucky. And to like, spoiler alert, that person just like literally gets hated by frogs. And if I select all of the fights, player 11, frogs just hate them. It was like very common issue for them that they were very upset about actually, because just frogs really don't like them. And so here again we can see which sources applied which kind of damage, and over here there are different flips taken by friendly, taken from source. So I click to Ox, obviously it's going to be Ox. If I click further on it, it should give me each oh no, it doesn't give. It should give me each individual skill. Oh, okay, this is taken from ability. So it will show you, okay, the most dangerous mechanic of Ox is Molten Earth because it does the most damage to people. And then Noxious Sludge is next most dangerous, and so on. So that's damage taken. And different views. Definitely click through this because a lot of interesting insight you can get from this different things. One of the things that you can troubleshoot here as well, like if I put weakening on orcs, what kind of hits, what kind of skills will hit for less, and will I mitigate that the danger? So I click him and I know that Molten Earth will hit for less, but Hot Spring applies Magma Sludge. So Magma Sludge will be just as dangerous regardless of whether I debuff orcs or no. So this is one of the interesting insights that you can draw from here. And next one is the healing. Over here it shows who healed for how much, and in here there are different settings. Absorbs, that eliminates shields. As you can see, this dark gray over here, that's the shields, and because the strat on Ox is to just barrier spam as much as you can, right? So if I remove absorbs, this is just pure healing from healing skills. This includes the shields. Then overheal shows you how much of the heals were applied to people who are already at full health. So this green graph over here, that's basically your wasted heals. It's very disheartening to see this graph as a healer, because you can see, okay, I invested into my build and into all those strong heals that I have, and I have like 3 spell damage glyphs, and my max magic is at 40,000 and whatever the heck. And then, well, yeah, but it doesn't matter because your effective heal is like 20%. And you're like, yeah, okay, very upsetting. But that's the nature of the ESO. Heal is a big thing in the ESO, so that's why. Kinda. And in here you can see as well, so you could pick. If I want to troubleshoot, let's say, this player 1 over here, are they casting enough of like healing springs, and do those healing springs actually hit people who needs to be healed? Well, I can see, okay, 14 casts, and over, 343? I should be casting about 4 healing springs, maybe 5 healing springs per illustrious healing, sorry, I keep calling it wrong name. About 4 or 5 in a minute. It's like almost 4 minutes. So 5 by 4, 20. So undercast a few of them. So they were undercasting. They could cast more of those to get better coverage. And then I could click and see, okay, when is the downtime of it? Okay, so here's the downtime. it was not casted throughout over here, so it was missing and not healing anybody. So that's a very easy way to confirm whether they are maintaining their HUDs. And then we could see, let's say, radiating. Is it actually worth? Let's reset the zoom. Is it actually worth casting over here? Well, I guess so, because 15 casts as compared to 50 casts combat prayer, but HPS is slightly higher. So for the intents and purposes of just healing, this was worth the cast, because like with the same amount of less cast than this, it did more healing. But this is obviously also an uptime, so you should be prioritizing this anyway. So that's the healing, and you can see it done by ability, by source, who is getting healed. So over here we can see, so source is, let's say, player 1, and friendly target is, let's pick up the tank and see, well, did we do enough of healing to a tank? And you can see, okay, each of those abilities did this much healing during those periods of time in the fight to this person over here who is a tank holding Ox. That's the healing part. Then threat, I actually don't know what the tab is. I never even looked at it. So I'm not sure.
It's taunt.
Oh, it's stunts. Okay, cool. Oh, you can see. Well, you can actually see it in debuffs as well, because stunt is a debuff. Why did they put it as a separate thing?
But threat shows who the boss is aggroed on, even if it's not taunted.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. Okay, so we can see who they are aggroed on. So this is the most interesting. This and next one is the most interesting to me, because I usually play support roles, but it should be also interesting to DDs and like as well, because here they can confirm, are they doing low damage because they have no uptime, or because they are not pressing buttons rapidly enough. And in here you can see, since few patches ago, they introduced like this combined uptime, where you can see, okay, this is all sources of empower, including the Mage's Guild plus the empower from a necro, and then down there you could find that all the individual empower uptimes over here from different sources shown separately. And this is super convenient, because usually you care about what's the combined uptime that we got, rather than sitting there and trying to derive it individually as we used to have to do. So super convenient to see the combined uptimes. But sometimes, like in here, you can see force. This doesn't seem to be a combined force. So let's just do a search, major force, and see where else we can see. So this is first one, second one. We're just looking for the biggest one. So this is combined major force, sax plus horns. So you see it doesn't show up there, but it does exist among the uptimes if you search for it. So if you're looking for combined, look for like the uptime with the highest, look for the buff with the highest uptime. If you're trying to troubleshoot individual ones, you just click on them individually and see who casted them. And that way you can confirm what the source was. For this one, for example, is it a horn or is it sax? Well, let's see who casted them. Gain by friendly, cast by friendly. And you can see those people are wearing sax. So that's a sax force. And the other one will be probably a horn force. So this is the uptimes. And then here you can basically go ahead, and the interesting part here, and it also exists in damage done. You can just pick and choose, okay, let me plot empower onto here, and give me a separate graph with just all the empower. And then I'm gonna say, well, let me also plot a force onto here. Where's our combined force? Let me plot
Does it
force.
say the ID number anywhere that you could tell where it's from?
IDs you can find here. Yeah, but you need to actually kind of click on them to confirm which one is which.
Oh, it's just
But if I
there.
click individually, it should put it into filter. Will it show me though that it's the one that is? No, it doesn't. That's unfortunate. If you're interested on certain people uptimes, you can either unclick them here, or you can just plot it from the view. Once you click on this, you can just add it to the plot from the view. Okay, let's do player 4. And you can see when player 4 is getting empower. Let's remove a couple of them, keep this one. So here you can compare. And this will stay throughout. So you can see, okay, player 4 got this much in power. Let me see how much light attacks did for the player 4. So we'll find light attacks dual wield, let's say. That's their front bar. And, wait, this one. And plot it onto there. And we can see, okay, does empower actually impact their light attack damage? It should, but there also, like, usually there's so many more other uptimes that are in place that it would, you know, it would be not like super obvious. But if you're doing some sort of like a dummy test, you could go together and say, keep light attacking and I will apply empower. You log it and then you go into the log, and that log will be super obvious where empower increased their light attack damage and where it didn't, because you will be just like doing a couple uptimes rather than like all of them put together. All right, so this is buffs, and again, you can click the source of the buff. This is the person, depending on what you click here, if it's gained by friendly, this is the person who will be gaining, and this will be the person who is applying. And if it's cast by friendly, this will be the person who is applying, and this will be the person who is getting the buff. So depending on what you click here, this will have different meaning as well. So that's the buffs. Debuffs, pretty much similar thing. It's basically either who is applying debuffs to our enemy or who is getting debuffs from the enemy. So this is gained. Somebody got Noxious Sludge, for example, and we can see, okay, this is people kiting the Noxious Sludge and they execute. If it's cast by friendly, it's obviously Noxious Sludge we don't apply. It will be all the debuffs that we apply. And here we can pip investigate. This is what we were talking about earlier. Do people maintain taunt? And you can click, and throughout the fight, this tank maintained taunt on Ox. It maybe fell once over here for a short period of time, but for the most part, Ox was taunted. And here, the taunt dropped, but it's most likely because the Harvard didn't spawn, most likely, rather than them losing taunt, because I don't recall people being killed in this pool by untaunted ads. So you can see it. And all sorts of different buffs. The interesting one is the stagger. Stagger, you cannot judge by just this number. You can actually click on it, and then you need to click, pick a target which you are interested in and confirm whether they are maintaining 3 stacks of stagger rather than just like 1 stack throughout. So you would go into this detailed view on a specific target rather than overall uptime, because overall is not very definitive since you need to maintain 3 stacks. And then we could see, let's say, Crusher, things like that, all sorts of things. Like brittle uptimes, who is applying most brittle. As well, you can see we have a healer over here who's applying some brittle. We have a necro tank who's applying some of it. And you can see where that brittle goes. So some of it goes to Wax. That's initial fight where there's no other targets, and then they're maintaining on Harvard Shells, and then stupid frogs start stealing it over here. Very annoying. Things like that. So you can confirm where the buffs are going on to. And again, here, this is also, you can zoom in and see certain parts of the fight where the uptimes were maintained. Similar as with buffs, we have combined uptimes and individual uptimes from different sources. So this is combined bridge. This could probably be from maybe puncture, and then some of it could be from boneyard. This minor bridge, most likely physical source of physical damage, just procced it as a status effect, things like that. Now the interesting part here is deaths. Usually, we're going for trifecta achievements for the most part, right? When we're progressing, so we want to investigate why did person die and was it a preventable death. So we can just click on each death over here and see what happened to them. Like this shows what happens to them from the moment their health went below 100%, and if it never went back to 100 and eventually got to 0, it will show all the events that happened to them throughout. So how much they were being hit for and how much they were being healed for. However, sometimes though deaths have leading events to it, let's say mispositioning or whatever, so you cannot just look at this view, you should be looking at more views. along with this. For example, here we can see, okay, this is pretty much, they just got magma sludged and died, right? And was it blocked? Doesn't look like it because it doesn't say sunburst. I don't remember what sunburst is. But over here you can also see what kind of uptimes they had. Minor resolve that's supplied by combat prayer. Then they had major resolve, so all the defensive were on them. There should be minor toughness in here somewhere. Doesn't show. Does it show? No, it doesn't show. Oh, there it is. Shows minor toughness. So basically all the basic defensive were there, so they didn't die to lack of uptimes. They just probably got knocked down and couldn't block the following magma sludge and died. And so you can troubleshoot the deaths. But you can also note, okay, so they died at 210. Let's go at the, and it was player 5. Let's go to the buffs and pick player 5 and click on, let's say 210, they already dead. So up to here, let's go up to 11 and go back to about 10 to 15 seconds to see what kind of buffs they had, what was happening during the fight, things like that. So this is player 5. Let's remove this because it's hella distracting. What kind of buffs they had? Well, they had powerful assault, which is not helpful to them, but they had resources from Horn fell over here. They were still alive by then. So Horn, resources from Horn fell over, so they could had less resources. Let's see, major resolve. We know that it was there because we just looked at it, but we can click again and see, okay, major resolve was up throughout. Search for minor resolve. There's different sources of it. Did it lie to us that they had minor resolve, but they didn't? Okay, so minor resolve was not there from the looks of it. And then we could look minor toughness. Toughness, there is the toughness. Again, toughness was up, so we can see, okay, majority of the defensive uptimes were there. We can go on debuff and see, did we have like weakening up or whatever. In this team, I don't think we have weakening altogether, but we could see like maybe minor maim, was it there? Yeah, there was some minor maim. Combined, this is the combined one. So minor maim was, so many people are playing minor maim, very interesting. So in their death recap, they get hit by sunburst. Sunburst is the mechanic of Annihilator, pretty sure. Yeah.
I think it's the mini heavy.
Right. So they, oh, it's the meteors falling from the sky after heavy, right?
Yeah.
So we need to pick up then Harvacral, and we need to pick up debuffs and see. So this minor maim is kind of relevant because it also involves Ox. And we'll find minor maim. There it is. So this is Harvacral minor maim. So it was maimed. They died at about 10-ish seconds. So it's somewhere around here that they died. So maim was up. It was down for a little bit here. So it's kind of like investigation that you could do to confirm whether defensive were up, defensive buffs, debuffs were up at their death. So was it their mistake or lack of healing, or was it just like some sort of unlucky combination of mechanics? So healing, it was player number 5 by source. Why did I click? Okay, done by source. 2, player number 5. Okay, were they getting healed by, let's say, this healer? They got hit tick of extended ritual, but then it either expired or they walked out of it because there is no extended ritual here. They did couple ticks of illustrious healing over here, and they did get radiating. So some of the heals were there, so they were getting healed. They were not just sticking down with the dots. But over here, there's some sort of gap in healing. Let's click on overheal. Oh, never mind. I'm just looking at effective healing. So overheal shows that ritual was there throughout. Let's see. Ritual, illustrious was throughout, and radiating was throughout. So yeah, so the cuts were there. They just probably stood in it and didn't block and died. So let's see. Let's confirm. Damage taken by player 5. Sunburst 2, unblocked. And then Magma Sludge. Some of them they blocked and some they didn't block. So this shows blocked percentage. So usually when Sunburst is going off, the mini heavy tank says block, and people supposed to block that, but it shows unblocked. So they just died because they didn't block it, or they could have just walked out of it. So we just troubleshooted the death of persons. It could be like the tank deaths are especially interesting to troubleshoot because when tanks die, it's like sometimes it's like because they didn't block or whatever, but oftentimes it's especially in high threat scenarios such as Falgraving, they sometimes don't get healed enough, or sometimes the weakening fell off, they got too much damage or things like that. So tank deaths are very interesting to investigate that way. Right, this part is interrupts. Let's remove this, all of this. So in VAS in particular, interrupts are super important because if stuff goes uninterrupted, then people die. So over here you would see how many of the Lotus interruptible attacks who interrupted. And you could see, oh, okay, we have very good OT because they got like 70% of interrupts and our interrupter get like 30% of interrupts. So OT is like progressing and doing good job. Or you could see, okay, 80% is interrupted and 20 is not. That means none of the interrupters nor tank is interrupting well enough, so you could like troubleshoot it this way. Dispels, again, here is kind of irrelevant, but on Chicken Fight in VHOF, you would see huge list of different skills that can be dispelled, and you could see who is dispelling the most. This is resources, and it shows you how much health they had, or how much Magicka stamina and ultimate they had, and how they recover those resources. So one of the interesting one is everybody's running Basay nowadays, so our maintaining Basay well. So you can just pick any player, let's say player 10. Wow, that's very low match, so they're very skilled in maintaining low Magicka for Basay. Or we can pick a player 2 who is a healer and they're in Pearls and see how well they utilize Pearls. Again, that's like very good graph for Pearls maintenance. Over here it goes up a little bit, but that's like high threat when they start kiting the poison usually. So they utilizing Pearls very well. And we can confirm, are they utilizing Pearls well or no? Click on Ultimate and see their raw gain in Ultimate. This is like kind of cross get a little bit higher. This is the tanks also because they are North, they would have higher alt gen. This is like generic alt gen, 60, 50, stuff like that. And then they had 580. That's like insane amount of alti that they're generating with Pearls. And we can click on them and see the source of it. 377 came from Pearls, 132 from Baron, and everything else that's like class passive, stuff like that. And you can see like the health of people, for example, if whether the tank is getting topped up on their health consistently. Which one is the tank? This is the tank. Yep, their health is pretty high throughout. They don't like deep down too much and getting healed back up very quickly. And we can see, are they maintaining their resources well? Well, that's kind of dangerously low stamina over here. What about Magicka? Since they're in ice stuff, they're blocking with match. Over here, kind of low. They're probably over, like sweating the empower uptimes here, but here it goes back up pretty good. So the resource part, and then the cast, this is our, like how much of anything at all, including light attacks, bar swaps, blocks, and dodges. Well, block, I think block casts, block counts toward it, but like roll dodges, bashes, things like that. And usually good DDs will have very high CPM, and in general, like higher CPM, more stuff you're casting, that means more uptimes, more damage, more heal, stuff like that. Some roles, specifically, let's say Rojo, will have lower CPM just because you spend like 5 seconds heavy attacking every 20 seconds, so your CPM will be lower. But other than that, like if it's a generic like damage or healer role that doesn't involve heavy attacking and stuff like that, the CPM should be on a higher end over here. And then you can see what exactly they are casting. So light attacks, obviously a lot, and it should be 60 of them per minute, but because one light attack per second, but it's between dual wield, you need to combine it with light attacks of the Inferno stuff, because they have Inferno backbar. Where is the light attack Inferno?
It's the fourth one at 12.6.
Oh my god, I'm so blind. So this is basically 4729. This is combined should add up to something along the lines of having 60 CPM of the light attacks. So you can see over here what kind of synergy. So they got Charged Lightning, very nice. That's Berserk synergy. Some, like how many standards they casted, 3 throughout the fight, things like that, how many Grave Rovers they took. And whether they're stealing synergies for attack in case you're running Alkosh. There will be Harvest here. If you're DD and you're taking Harvest, you should probably not be doing that because it's like literal waste of damage for you. So that's the cast. In here we have enemies, and this is same view, but now the main actor that we're reviewing is enemy. So how much Oaks, so it's the same, like debuffs cast by friendly will be here equivalent graphs gained by enemy. So stagger on Oaks will be shown here as well, and it should be similar graph as when we're looking cast by player 3 on Oaks. It's a similar graph. Sometimes those graphs kind of bug out and show you like weird information. For example, Crusher up applied to a target died, but it goes like lines throughout. And sometimes you could get better view on those kind of buggy uptimes in this different preview on the, like from enemies, between the enemies and friendlies. So you could get better results looking at it at the different angles. And then you can also see resources of the enemy as well when they spawned and when they died. So Ox is not very interesting, but you can see when Harvacrel Annihilators were spawning throughout the fight and how fast they were dying. So this one needs to be targeted fast. You see how it's like, it's landed very at like 45 angle-ish. And this one is slanted much less because it's not being targeted as fast. Oh, sorry, clicked it. So it's not slanted as much because it's like requires less targeting. So you can see when enemies were spawning and when exactly they died. This is good to troubleshoot where the orbs enraging in VCR. You could see at the orb health bar, and if it's not going away within like however long orbs are usually up, it's like 20 seconds or something. 18 seconds, don't remember. But if it's like was alive and full health throughout, then it's probably was not killed and therefore enraged and charged at somebody. So this is all the tables and same exact information you can see here in events. So let's say if we're looking at the damage done by player 7 within this period of time. Oh, come on, stop being laggy. Within this like period of time by deep breath. I can just look at events and see, okay, they hit all those targets with this one deep breath cast. If you like reset zoom, it will show you just huge list of the events. And this is good to investigate whether your uptimes like impact your damage, for example, because it shows you exact number. This graph sort of projects it. So this number over here, up here, it's not always like super accurate just because it's like a graph that is being built and it's being smoothed out. But this is like exact number. Your deep breath hit for this much, and the stars over here show you that it's a crit. And then it shows you every single uptime that you had when that happened. So you could like actually investigate, okay, will this other different CP make my deep breath hit harder? You switch CP, you do another run, and then you confirm with this same amount of uptimes, did it hit for more or less? This kind of investigation you could do here. Or like what the heals were hitting correct people. So we'll go to healing, and then like whether this person done by source, whether this person combat prayer was hitting correct people or 6 people per cast, or was it aimed into like nowhere? So this is the very first combat prayer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 targets were hit by it, and they got all overhealed by it. And then over here, next second we're casting, and oh look, player 8 just got hit by same exact goddamn combat prayer, so they got another refreshed berserk on them, and some player didn't get berserk over here. So that's kind of like my grudge with Zos, that combat player targets same people over and over, regardless of how much you spam it within a certain amount of time. So those are the events. And timelines, I usually don't look at this.
I think timelines are good if you want to see people's like rotations, because Yeah, that's
Oh.
Yeah,
what I
I've
use them
used
for.
it
Oh, okay, okay.
before because I have a tendency to like on certain skills I just don't light attack before for some reason.
So
So
let's
I
remove
like go and make sure I'm doing all my light attacks.
Oh, yeah, that could be a
And I
good.
think I've used it before in VSS on Loki to see the timing of the ice cages and like if ward is going off in time and stuff. So
Oh,
it's
yeah, that
helpful
makes
for, like,
sense. My favorite part over here is the replay. Because you can see who is going where. You can start replay over here and zoom in. Sometimes like they appear super tiny, like 3 dots and everything is black. That means it's zoomed out all the way. You just need to zoom in further down. And you can see who's doing what and who is aiming. So this is player 7. Like we can see, are they aiming combat prayer at all people or do they like not hitting some? And you can see where they were aiming it and how they were casting it. You see, they casted it here, then they applied portal, more combat prayer, then they went to cleanse. That's when the light attacks are not being cast, I guess. So you can see, okay, so they aim in here, but these people, do they get neglected? Well, let's confirm what this player is doing. Are they aiming? See, this player is aiming in those, while this player is aiming at those. And you can see who is targeting what as well, because you can see, okay, they're standing here and casting on the Annihilator. Then eventually they should be going and start casting on Oaks. And as we probably remember, was it player 7 who was getting hit by frogs? Here we can
11.
confirm. What they
Yeah, I think
stand
it was 11.
11? Okay, so player 11. We can confirm how they move throughout the fight and whether they stand in certain position where frogs hate on them more than other. But clearly they just like sitting here with the rest of the stack, so they're not doing anything special as compared to the rest of the people. So they're just getting hate by frogs for no reason. And you can see all of those are frogs. They're spawning, like being chained, and basically hating on that poor player 11. And in here you can see, okay, this is one of our tanks holding this Annihilator, this is another tank holding Oxylzo. If the group is, this is highly proficient group, so positioning is usually very good. But in low proficiency groups, you will see Oxylzo like moving around, or like he got charged, went somewhere here, and then got brought back in somewhere here. So you could see, okay, our parse is actually low, not because of the uptime, so us not pressing buttons rapidly enough, but just because the positioning is off. Over here you can see this mini moved, this mini was placed here, but it's slightly further away than it was, so their parses will be probably lower in this period of time, the AoE parses, because they're like the stuff is moving, and the more you move it, the less damage people do because you move it out of the dots. So that's very good way to troubleshoot that. And in VAS, for example, you will be able to troubleshoot who is kiting whom over and things like that, whether people are kiting like monkeys or they're actually kiting like proper people. So that's my favorite part of the logs, actually. And you can see here who is taking damage from what, or who is over here. You can click damage done. Where was it? You could click, there was a drop down in here somewhere. Okay, damage taken, and each person damage taken from ability, healing, who is healing how, over here in this small. And this shows you how they're getting. So this is not very interesting, but when you troubleshoot Basse, you could see who was who is bombermaning, because you roll throughout the fight, and over here you can see this is Death Touch debuff on both the healers, right? And you can roll throughout the entire fight. This player 3 got Death Touch. That means they probably, if they're not tank, then they probably are bombermaning. But I think they are the tank. Is this the tank? Yeah, that's the tank. Never mind. So you can roll throughout and see, okay, did anybody get Death Touch? And like a lot of people died immediately afterwards. Not really. So this fight, nobody was actually bombermaning. Pretty good. You would see like this person has Death Touch and all of these people died. That means they are the bomberman. Alright, now let's go to any questions or interesting thoughts that you have, or other interesting ways you use the logs yourself. That would be nice to hear.
Oh, well, I don't know if it's a question that can be maybe answered in 5 minutes, but we'll go for it. Speaking of proficient groups, and as groups are trying to build their experience, what kind of uptimes should be expected for different levels of content? I mean, I wouldn't expect a healer to have the same amount of uptimes if they're just trying to get just the vet DLCs, and then different if they're trying to do the hard modes, and then different still trifectas and so on. So what are kind of some numbers to shoot for people who are trying to build that?
So usually when I try to like see whether I can improve. There's one thing that I forgot to show you actually. You can look at the builds of people over here in summary. Stop being laggy. Oh my god. It's being laggy. It's hating on me. Hello? Okay. It shows actual like what kind of build person running, what the skills are, what the gear are. And so when I try to troubleshoot like my uptimes, can I be better? I would go here. Well, this patch is not really good because it just started. I will go, okay, rankings. And I go to the previous patch, Deadlands, because that one is very saturated. And then a lot of them are not like very exposed. But I would go to, rather than looking at the points, because a lot of the very good fights are still work in progress, so they're still dying, but they could get very good fight. So I'll look over here, either speed or damage. Speed is good enough, like who killed faster. And I see over here, 255 for Auxils on public log. This is insane. Is it hard mode? Yes, veteran hard mode. This is actually insane, 255. I think they mini-skipped probably. Or like I would look, 312 Basse on public log. This is insane. So I'll go here and I'm like, okay, what kind of uptime? So all of those people parsed very high. When they parse high, that means what? They get very good support. Because if your support is shit, your parse will not be high regardless of how good of a player you are. And I would click on a person and I'll see, okay, what are they running? Oh, okay, that's Jorval Tarot. What are their uptimes? And so I would look, okay, this is the Slayer that they applied on people. That's very friendly, so that they see. Okay, this is the Slayer, so this is probably like a people who go to Portal or whatever, right? So, okay, so they did 52% Slayer. Well, I guess that's what I'm gonna be looking up to. And I see over here the Slayer is missing. Well, it's probably they were either clutching, it was some sort of like stressful execute, they probably didn't heavy. But over here could be another bar, so in perfect condition, maybe it will be like a 60. Well, I guess this is a very good run, very good fight time, and this is the uptimes
You
that they
hate to
had.
see it.
Well, obviously we all know that mathematically possible is 72, right, on Jorval Daro. Like in realistic fight when you actually need to move and need to heal, and this is like very high threat fight where there's a lot of mechanics. Maybe it's not realistic to expect, okay, I need to have like 72% uptime on Roger. Probably not, right? Or 75, whatever is the number. 16.8 or 22. But this is a real people doing real uptimes in a very sweaty team. So, and that's what I usually do for myself. But obviously, if you're just progressing, well, it's probably not a good idea to look up to teams such as PTE, who is a score pusher. You could
A little
go,
intimidating.
right, that's like too much. So you could go down here and like, let me find some team that got like a very comfortable PB. Let's say I know that maybe like Ollie's team, they were like, it was comfortable PP. They like didn't play super sweaty, but they got it. Or like this, like what this team over here? No, that's low. That's very sweaty. This is sweaty. Okay, let's go further. Like this is like Kaguti Club. This is like team. It's a good team, but they are not like overly sweaty team, right? Let me click and see what they are doing and compare myself to what they are doing, and it will give me a ballpark what real people can do rather than what some like magical expected uptime of you that people claim that you should be doing.
No,
Okay.
that totally makes sense though, because it's like every patch has slightly different emphases too of what
Mhm.
uptimes you should have and like who's doing what role and how much they're juggling. So just looking at the logs and seeing what the massive people are doing, that's very insightful.
Right. It's like the stealing the builds from logs is something that like everybody does and everybody should know how. Obviously, don't steal it blindly and tailor it for your team, but like to get ideas of who's doing what, who's casting ultimates when. That's a very like good way to kind of help your team to grow and learn more and stuff like that. Does anybody have any more questions, ideas, comments, concerns, or tricks that they want to show?
I don't know if you looked at the compare function.
Oh, compare function. Let's do that.
But I use that. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of different ways you could use it, but I use that usually sometimes to compare like myself to my co-healer and
So-
like just for me to make sure that I'm like doing okay comparatively. But yeah, you can just like plug 2 players in and
Okay,
go
let's
through
do.
all of the different
This is the
things
healer,
and
and this is the healer.
like
Oh,
it just
okay, yeah.
shows them side by side. So it's just like a nice way to look at
Uh-huh.
things sometimes.
That is kind of nice. Yeah, I would just like click each person and look at what they're doing, but that's actually pretty nice. You
Yeah,
can
it's
see,
pretty-
for example, HPS by healing, illustrious healing. So this person is doing more, but they are Rojo, so it should be like doing more HPS. With the same casts, higher HPS here. So that's kind of like, okay, so this person has a build that is capable to output more per cast. That's pretty cool. Never really used that either, because when I was doing same task, I would just like pretty much click this and then look at 2 people casting it. But this one is actually like a better way to do that. So many different ways to do stuff in here. It's amazing. Cool. Anybody else? Any questions, comments, concerns? Oh, one of the questions that is not super related to logs, but it's kind of like part of the log review was like when Nazare came out and people like, what's minor major? You can just go into buff and look at literally, or debuff in case of Nazare and Casbah friendly. And if it's literally says minor or major, then it's a minor or major because it's named that way. And Zo's logic behind minor majors is that they are kind of standardized against spreadsheet. They should give you like approximately like 5% if it's minor or 10% of something if it's major. So let's say major force is 20% of critical damage, but they spreadsheet against 50% critical chance. So 50% of 20% is 10%. So it's kind of like sort of standardized buffs that are also named in the same way. They are just minor and majors. All right, cool. If we don't have any more questions, I guess we can adjourn. Thank you everyone for coming. And if you have any further questions or want to actually start raid leading yourself, please feel free to reach out to any of the officers here and we will give you the tag so you can try out raid leading and see if you actually like it and basically do it yourself.